similar journey. But tonight we're going to talk about living a life of purpose and discovering that purpose and being able to generate income in a way that allows you to live the lifestyle that you crave. And Carmen is on a similar journey. So let me just start off by welcoming Carmen to this site.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
And as people who are listening in, we would appreciate some likes or comments just so we know you're there. But when it comes to living a life of purpose, I know that you started off in one direction and then you've had some course corrections to get where you truly are today. And so why don't you give me some of your background and just to help the audience understand why you chose the first career, how that manifested, and then all about this wonderful idea of a golden cage.
Correct. Yes, that is one of my keywords. I used to live a life of a golden cage. And for those that don't know me, my name is Carmen Mercado. And it's a funny journey. I believe that we all go through a path in life. However, it is our determination to allow the flow to really guide us. And that is something that I'm understanding at this age of my life. When I was young and lost, that's what I used to call myself. I have a funny story or a very different story. And that's why you heard me the other night. I was on my own since I was 17. And that's when my entire life journey began, when I had to make a determination in the middle of the night with a backpack on my back, sitting on a sidewalk and really saying, okay, what am I doing next? And my instinct just kicked in. And instead of having a pity party, I remember saying to myself, you know what, tomorrow I have to go to school. I have to go to work. Let me get going. So I'm going to go and knock on a friend's door. And I just kept going, like life guarded me and just took me into a flow. And when I say a flow, sometimes we want things in life to happen our way. And sometimes we feel that it gets really tough. And it gets tough because life is directing us in one way, but we're trying to get the opposite way. I hope, does that make sense?
It certainly does.
So that's when my whole journey started, about making that decision that night that my life wasn't going to be a pity party, that whatever happened at that moment with my family wasn't going to determine my future. And the goals that I had in my mind as a young girl, that I had big goals. I wanted to have a career. I had this vision that I wanted to have a career, that I wanted to go all the way up, and nothing was going to stop me. So that's when my whole life journey and intentionality in life began. And just fast forwarding, I went to school. I put myself through school. I went through. I worked on my own. And the funny thing is that I never decided that I was gonna take time off. I never said, you know what, it's too much for me, I'm gonna just take one class. No, I went full time on everything. I was full time at work. I was full time in school, and my career wasn't just any career. I was going. I studied architecture, and then I continued into construction management. So I went like full force into what I wanted, and I had this thing in my mind that nothing was going to stop me.
So Carmen, help me understand a young woman who all of a sudden is involved in both residential and commercial real estate because you had some dream. What was it that inspired you to get the education and then to pursue a career through architecture or in commercial development?
That's a great question. I don't know. I guess it was something that I always had I guess, an ambition as a young woman that I wanted to be into a professional career.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be in a career that it was more men related. Like that was my vision. I don't know why. I wanted to be like different. I wanted to go into a route that normally women wouldn't go.
Right.
So that's why I went into architecture. And the road was tough
Right.
because
Obviously.
it was tough because when you get into an ambience that is male dominated, it's even tougher.
Well,
Um,
and not only male dominated. There are a lot of professions that don't have the bravado that your typical construction worker or the typical people involved with commercial development have. I mean, you know,
correct.
that is a core of people that comes from a manly profession.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, you are a very different individual in that environment. In
Yes.
Before you made the shift out, how many total years were you involved in that profession?
um, when I graduated, I began in residential as soon as I finished my bachelor's of science. So I'm thinking 95, I would say 12 years.
Yeah, so I thought it was more than a decade. So
Yes,
very substantial piling on of more and more responsibility, some left
correct.
and right turns, but it had the same kind of a vision. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, you decided that you wanted to take a shift. Why don't you talk to the audience about what was it that was missing in the professional career that you had adopted that wasn't fulfilling in the kind of lifestyle and the vision for Carmen that you hold?
Yes, I had that vision that I wanted this career, I wanted this lifestyle. I guess we grow up with this cultural vision that, you need to go to school, you need to get that degree, you need to work and have this, have all these labels, and that's what is going to define who you are. And when I was exactly at the point or at the level that I wanted, I was running multi-million dollar projects. I get a different taste. I found myself asking myself the question as to, is this who I want to be 10, 15 years down the road? And I didn't like the answer. I found myself really, like, when you see yourself face to face and you're not loving what you're seeing, and it was really scary,
Well,
because
I can imagine with these large projects, so much responsibility, you're accountable for results of so many people that you don't personally control. And yet you're trying to deliver a product and a timeline. And life gets overwhelming when you're in a position like that. I remember you talking
mhm,
about all of the commuting that you were doing for a job that was a far distance. And you're like, where's my life? My life is in a car going to and from, and you didn't have the
mhm.
time with your husband and you didn't have that part of the life.
Correct, and that's what I was going to mention. That's when I had that haha moment that, um, yes, I pursue a career that I wanted, but then I realized once I had it that I didn't want to be like that 10, 15 years down the road, because I wasn't gonna, I had a vision of the future and I wasn't liking what I was seeing. I was seeing somebody that was gonna lose herself and wasn't gonna love herself or love life. So that's when that term of the golden cage came to me, because I found myself that that's where I had put myself. I had the career, I had the degree or the finances, everything that I wanted, but at the same time, I was caged. I was caged because I was commuting long distance. I had no life. My life was just working and going to bed. My husband, he has his business, so, and he was running it on his own back then. So he also was with low, so we were not even seeing each other.
So before you move ahead, I really want to capture this for the audience. You know, the vast majority of people don't even get to experience your golden cage because they don't have the education and the profession didn't come together in a way that you achieved a level of success that you had envisioned for yourself. Most people don't have the time freedom or the money freedom to begin to live the life they love. And here you find yourself in a position of accomplishment, and yet it was not generating the lifestyle portion. And that's the whole reason we do it, is to be able to fulfill our desires to become a whole person and serve in a way that creates value for others, but at the same time is very fulfilling for ourselves. So you went from one extreme to another extreme because you jumped into your husband's business. Talk a little bit about that and the success that you had in that.
Yes, so it was funny because I took some time off. I also I guess it was something that I needed to experience. I had also my beginning of my life, so I felt like I needed some time to like get to know myself a little better, to know the things that I didn't like about myself, and I wanted to change as I was getting into another phase of my life. And I took some time off, and I love, I started decorating my house, and I started doing things, I started thinking, and then I decided to go back into my field. And it's funny how the universe works because I couldn't find anything that it would meet my requirements or that it would be local too. So everything all the opportunities that I would find was for me to be traveling outside my location. So it was going to be a relationship from the long distance if I wanted to go back into my career. So I said at that point, I was in a different phase of my life. I had already transitioned from my career. I had in the process also gone through a divorce. So my vision to my next phase of life was totally different. And my new relationship had a priority. So I said, no, I'm not gonna go for that. I'm just gonna continue waiting. And in that process, my husband told me, you know what? Why don't you come and help me in the meantime? So you get your feet wet, you get back to what is, going back to the workforce. And I remember his words because he said it like 3 times. And he said, this is only temporary. This is my business, so this is only temporary. You just come for you to transition. And I said, that's fine. And it's funny because his business was the total opposite spectrum of what I was used to. His business is an export business, and mainly he does car parts, and he does everything related to cars. So I had no clue, nothing whatsoever, what a car was, and like all the little details to fine tune that task. And I had never forgotten. I show up to work, and he had a pile of papers. He has a list of phones, and then he goes, "Okay, this is what I need you to do. This is who you need to call. I expect you to have this finished by the end of the day. See ya." And he left.
Welcome to training in a small business.
Yes, and that's when I learned. Well, I shouldn't say I learned because I had already learned that, but it was that reality that we can figure things out if we really want to. And that is this whole thing about intentional living and about, you made a point earlier about maybe people haven't faced that golden cage. But in reality, we all have faced a cage.
Absolutely.
The difference is that are we willing to step out of it, or are we willing to just get in it and keep that race every day, or because it's comfortable and I don't want to figure different things. Does it make sense?
Yeah, before you move ahead, I really want the audience to capture what you've just said. You talked about living a life of intentionality, of purpose, and unwilling to accept what was different. You were willing to walk away from a career that you was not fulfilling, even though it was financially rewarding,
Mhm.
to something new. You are willing to learn about a whole new industry and not be intimidated by it because it was obviously beneficial for you to help your husband's business grow. And I know you had a great impact on that. But the point of it is, there is absolutely no reason we have to accept what life hands us. The people who live, in Walden, there's this famous quote that most people live lives of quiet desperation. I love that quote because it is so true and it is so unnecessary. People who just accept what life hands them ends up with a very meager life. Isn't fulfilling personally, it typically isn't fulfilling financially. But the people who are willing to step forward and say, that's not for me, I'm willing to do more, I know I can do more, are the kind of people that will eventually find their place, find their vehicle to move them from where they are to what they truly desire. And that's what this whole blog and this whole Facebook page is all about, is helping people find that journey. So let's continue with your journey in your husband's business.
Yes. So I remember I showed up on a Monday, and by Friday, I was an expert. I have learned, I like intentionally went in and asked questions and asked questions. There was no fear in asking. Whoever I was calling and I didn't understand what I needed to ask, I would ask. By the end of the week, I was an expert. I remember this gentleman telling me, you know what, if your husband doesn't want to work with you anymore, I hired you on a spot, because I had never met anybody that show up on a Monday not having a clue, and by Friday she asked me questions in a way that people that have been doing it for years don't ask me. And it was just that I felt that he depended on me, and I had to really show up and do my best. And that's how I faced every day. And it was funny because by the end of the first year, I remember having this conversation with him, um, telling him, are you open for me to bring things that I have learned from my career, from my experience, and integrate it into the business and reformat it? Yeah, are you open to that? He goes, sure, let's do that. And I did that. And by the end of the first year, the business had grew 3 times. It was like crazy. Like all of a sudden we had this monster in front of us, and it just happened overnight. And the funny thing is that I remember, I'm telling you about it, and I see myself sitting on that office like close to midnight or 1 in the morning, and saying to myself, I caged myself again.
So before you move ahead, I want to capture that point. People who come in with an outside perspective can often see things that others cannot see. So your husband had a business and he was running it in a way that he knew. And you have a level of professionalism from your education and all the experience over the dozen years of all these projects you were managing, which
Yes.
brings different perspective to the table. And what people often need, in Think and Grow Rich, they talk about having a mastermind, and it's this process of bringing around people that have a different perspective and learning from them, so you begin to see what you could not see. And I think that's what you brought to your husband's business, was you elevated it from what it had been to something that was much more. And of course, because it's your family's business, you're helping your family, as well as it's not just going to aggrandize some other person as an employee. But as you said, get into now why that also wasn't where you wanted to be, what you're not doing today.
Yes, But I wanted to expand on a point that you just made, and it is so true. Um, Masterminding is like there's that phrase that you become one of the first people that you mingle with or that you hang around with, and it's so true. The power of a mastermind and the power of being with people that have bigger and broader goals take you to a different level, and that's what I saw in with my husband. Like at the moment I couldn't understand it, but now that I look back, he had told me so much about business. He had told me, but he taught me the rough way. He taught me, like, life is not like everything is given to you. You need to like really be willing to learn it the rough way. And when you're a business owner, it is a tough road, but it's so rewarding. And I might be getting off the subject, but it is that path, and it's about. I think this applies to anything in life. Anything worth having is going to be a tough road, whether it's marriage or having kids and so on. So
Well, I think
going.
that it is exactly on point with what Enjoy Lifestyle Freedom blog is all about, because it is defining what is right for you, what is what leverages your unique skills and passions, so you can serve other people and create more value in a way that is fulfilling personally,
Mhm.
while at the same time enabling the financial rewards that will allow you the freedom to step beyond just being in that hamster wheel of just
Mhm.
going to work, just working for other people's dreams rather than working on your own dreams. And you are such an example of a person who clarified what it was that you truly desire. And so now you can be living a lifestyle that is different from being in that cage, because you decided to find a way, out of the maze, out of the box, into something that is much more fulfilling for you. So please continue.
Correct. I couldn't have said it better. That's perfectly pictured. And yes, like that evening, that moment, I found myself saying to myself, "Wow, I caged myself again. This is, it's different because yes, I'm with my husband. We are together, but yet this is not a lifestyle. We are working like 12 plus hours every day. So that we had, a conversation that, we need to change a few things.